Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
This episode is powered by Poddex.
Thank you for tuning in today. You are now listening to That Will Never Work podcast with your host, Maurice Chisholm. Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Maurice. Glad you tuned in today. You know, I listened to a podcast not too long ago for one of my interviewed individuals, and his name is Robert Reable. And in this podcast, and his links will be in the description below. In the podcast, they brought up something I thought was very, very interesting. Very interesting. So, what happens when you go and you speak to someone and you ask them for advice? You ask them a question. What happens in most cases, or in some cases, or in no cases, you know, depending on who you are and who's listening. But what do you do? What do you tend to do? What do most people tend to do? And a lot of times they're anticipating the answer by either asking another question or, you know, they're expecting a certain answer, so they're jumping in. But my main question is, do you take the time to ask and then shut up? I thought that was a very intriguing concept because I know there are times for myself where, you know, I can ask a question and I don't shut up. And my wife would tell you, you know, she'd be like, Maurice, can I answer the question, please? Did you ask me a question? Which question you want me to answer, right? But how many of you also struggle with asking a question, looking for advice, looking for an answer to your problem, whatever the situation might be, but how often are you taking the time to ask and then shut up? And I think what happens is that sometimes, you know, we fall into a place where we don't want to seem as though we're not smart enough, we're not good enough. Again, low self-esteem. Again, self-doubt. And we want to ask the question, and we truly, and most times earnestly, really want the answer. But we don't want to show weakness in the sense of we don't know how to get to that conclusion. How many of you struggle with that today? So I challenge us, as we are seeking answers, or as we are seeking higher knowledge, education, whatever it is, that once we ask the question, if we could just please, and I'm going to say it nicely this time, can we just please calm down and be quiet for a second, be still for a second, and receive the information? Now, understand this, though. There are some moments where we ask the question and we really do not want the answer. I.e., if you listen to episodes ago where I talked about feedback, because we could ask a question and have that idea of already in our mind that we failed. If you listen to that, you know, to my episode about failure, right? And you ask a question like, hey, you know, how did I do on this project? And in your mind, you've already felt like you failed. And now you're looking for feedback, but to what degree? And I think that the feedback scares us a little bit because we don't want to hear that you failed. We don't want to hear that you struggled or whatever. But understand all it is that in that feedback or that idea of failure, there's an opportunity for you to learn and for you to grow. And so as we're asking that question for feedback, can we take the time to be quiet? And that's not always easy to do, more especially for individuals who have felt like they have never been heard in their lives. There are a lot of people that I know that are like that, where they felt like they have yet to be heard. So they're quick they could ask a question, but they also want to be heard. And they've unfortunately been in situations where their voice has been diminished, their voice has been quieted down. So they're quick to talk, but not understanding that, you know what, you do need to be quiet for a second and hear what's really going on and process it effectively to answer it in an educated manner where it doesn't come off as if you don't know what you're talking about, and while your voice has been quieted down some. Are we effective listeners? Are we effective hearers of what's going on or what's being said to us? So in that, as we say, shut up. Also, let's not think about our external voice, right? You know, as the one that's coming out, right? But what about the one that's on the inside? Can we shut that noise off? Can we shut that voice up to say, you know what, I really don't want to hear this. You know, I'm really not feeling this. You know, I already know what they're going to say. Is there a way to shut that noise off in our head so we can process what's being said to us? And then at that particular moment, take it, break it apart, figure out what stuff we need to eat and keep, you know, that's nutritious to us, right? And push away that part that's not good for us or is not applicable to our situation at that moment. Because I can't sit here and tell you to get rid of all of it, because in most cases, and this is just my experiences, even though someone can give some information today, it's not always applicable today, but it will be used for tomorrow. And I give you a case in point of anytime my parent might have said something to me as a kid, and now I'm older, I'm like, oh, wow, I see what you're talking about. I get it now. You know, that light bulb goes off. So all I'm asking is that, can you take the time to ask your question and to chill out? Can you ask your question? Can you be quiet? Can you ask your question and can you shut up? Find a way to do that if you can. If this applies to you, it might not apply to you. Or it might not apply to you in the manner that you hear it, but just think about that concept of asking and shutting up. That's something that I'm going to have to practice myself, I'm going to be honest. I don't think that is always going to be easy for me because I'm always in analytical mode, to be honest. And I think that I listen well. I do. And I'm able to take what someone is saying. I'm able to process it rather quickly. But there's also moments where I don't want to hear the feedback. There's also moments where, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, this person is not, I'm not sure if they're sure of themselves. So I kind of just want to move it on. So in my head, there's one conversation going on versus one that's coming out of my mouth, of course. But are we able to shut the noise off and move forward? Thank you very much for listening today.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.